Meeting to order. Um, Roll call, please.
Director Daniels,
Here.
Director Lindor, she's absent today. Chair Riley,
Here.
we have a quorum with 2 members of the committee present.
Okay, we got a minimum of 2 and a maximum for today. Okay, additions, corrections to the agenda?
There are none other than the sheet you have in front of
I was wondering where that sheet was.
you. Sean, elaborate.
There's a minor one on page 5, which I'll go. Page 5.
Are there any members of the
Yeah.
public? Are there any members of the public in this room, or are these all staff?
Staff.
This is all
Okay.
staff and we have no members online.
Okay, that's good. Okay, back to the agenda, action items. We will, adoption of the minutes of September the 8th.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Get myself in order here. Item number 2, the action item, recommendation to authorize a contract with IDM US Hostings for Gravity Services.
Yes.
This needs a little explanation.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. So I'll go over this item. This is to recommend entering into a 3-year contract for licensing a budgeting book software with a company called IDM US Holdings. They go by the name of Gravity Solutions. And before I dive into this, I just want to explain a little bit. We go through, as you may know, we go through a 4-part budget process, which starts with planning and developing priorities for the year. That's a brainstorming exercise that happens before the budget begins. Then we get requests from the various divisions. Then we forecast our revenues. We develop our personnel expenses with benefits and salaries. And then we compile the budget, which is the third step, preparation. And then we compile it into a budget book. And then the 4th step is adoption and administration of the budget. So we looked at steps 2 and 3 of this process. See if I can increase the size. There you go.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah. So we looked at solutions for steps 2 and 3 of the process, and we wanted to streamline our budget development and budget presentation, the way we do it in-house. And we reached out to all these vendors that you see here: Quotistica, OpenGov, Gravity, ClearGov, and Tyler. And most of these solutions have something both for development and presentation. These solutions are in the range of $50,000 to $200,000. Currently, we use Tyler Technologies for our financial system, and they have a budgeting module. And it was a nominal $2,000 a year. But the advantage of using Tyler is that all the salary data is already in there. All the benefit data is in there. And you could come up with different budget scenarios using that data. That's already inside the system. So we would like to use Tyler's budgeting module for budget development. And then, we would like to use another solution for presentation. And our recommendation is to go with Gravity because of several reasons. Number 1, it's the only solution that provides a standalone licensing for preparing a budget book. And it offers a solution that makes the process a little more automatic. So it has pre-formatted tables and Excel spreadsheets and Word files that kind of link together. Right now, our process is very manual. Like every page, every Excel file is separately done, then converted into a PDF, and then combined together into a budget book. So that whole process can be automated. So our recommendation is to go with Tyler ERP Pro for step 2, and then Gravity for step 3. And then administration would again be Tyler ERP Pro.
Does Tyler offer the step 3 or is it? We're gonna utilize Tyler to the extent we can and then for the
Exactly.
book, we need something else.
Yeah, Tyler doesn't, it's a ERP system, so it doesn't have presentation capabilities. It's designed as an accounting system, accounting, purchasing, HR, it has different modules. It can't produce a budget book. And so that's the piece that we need to like parse out and get the best solution for that task.
Got it.
And so our recommendation is to do just that. It's going to take us about 3 months to implement the solution. And then we are hoping that we'll be ready for the coming budget cycle, that starts in February, March.
So when did this process of looking at this option, when did you start that process?
This started last
It was
year.
like a lot of evaluation.
Yeah, we started last year. And so we bought the Tyler's budgeting module last year. And then we have continued to reach out to other vendors and had that like demo sessions, interviews and such. And now I think we are at a point where we feel confident and comfortable to use Gravity. Gravity solution is 15,000 a year plus the one-time implementation. I think it's a good investment for the district. And it will help us produce a professional budget book faster.
Did, well, you've got a lot of confirmation of other places that you've looked and compared to and so on. Is this an evolution of the district or is this an evolution of technology or is it an evolution of how to approach budgets? I'm just trying to.
Maybe a little bit of all three.
Together.
A little bit of all three. We want to do budget the way it's done in other public agencies, and now most of them are trying to use the best solutions that are available out there. These solutions evolve over time, and I think we are at a point where it's just coming up to speed and saying, hey, this is becoming the norm out there, and why don't we just use that? I think one of the things that might have held us back was that we are a much smaller entity, and so the need perhaps wasn't there, and we could compile it all together. But this is something that would assist us moving forward, whether we stay at this level or become a full-fledged utility.
Well, that was where I was going next. In anticipation of Director Edwards' question. Does this make us seem more like a water agency? I mean, a supply, full service?
Yeah, so this solution is being used by a lot of other, utility districts, municipalities, and they've used Gravity both for budget development and presentation. We will start with the presentation piece, and if down the road we come to the conclusion, hey, we should also use the development piece, then that's something that we could integrate into. But yeah, the solution's geared for full-fledged utilities.
It's good to hear. Yeah.
So I think you answered my question, then Gravity would do step 2 as well and does it for other entities?
It has the ability to do that. It's just going to cost a little more. But it would need to be configured. It's a pretty prolonged configuration exercise. And if you want to go through the steps, then it has the ability to do that.
So we're still getting right now with the combination of the two, we're at the best price in terms of meeting our needs. It wouldn't be less expensive to go with Gravity for the whole thing and be more.
Oh no, Gravity's full-fledged solution is in the 40,000 range. We've used 2,000 for Tyler and 15,000 here. And we're still trying to get the best product because Gravity gives us the best end product in terms of one fully formatted PDF.
And they integrate well to be able to produce the presentations that we need from Tyler to Gravity.
Yes, there is an integration between Tyler and Gravity, so we could get the input from Tyler and feed that data into Gravity. In the first year, we may or may not do that. We might just develop the budget, feed it as a full Excel file, and then pre-format the tables. But yes, there is seamless integration between the two.
Cool.
I thought I read somewhere where this is working for, you mentioned a couple other agencies, but I thought you mentioned a city of
Berkeley
Yeah,
and others.
Yes, that's in the, I think it might be in one of the exhibits to the staff report.
I think it's here on it's in your PDF, I mean, your PowerPoint, whatever this is. It was in the one we got from Gravity.
Yeah, page 2 of the exhibit.
This. It provides some customers.
Yeah, Placer County, Anaheim, Berkeley. And there are others. There's a water district called Los. In fact, I could, yeah. It's what page number is it? Page 10, page 9 and 10,
Santa Cruz County.
page 8 and 10. Yeah. So it says trusted by over 200 customers in 40 states.
So whose workload is relieved here? More than is it mainly you? I mean, I'm sure it's mainly you.
Yeah, at this point,
Other-
it's yeah, it's me and to some extent Sandra. So it's mostly a 2.5 man show here.
But it's automating a process that you now try to do manually.
Yeah, and the other element is accuracy, because when we change one table, because we present our budgets in different formats by fund, by division across years, we had to one change here would lead to change in 10 different places. And that, since it's all linked together, that's faster. And so the chance for human error is also reduced.
Nice.
Yeah. It's good. Well, I'm ready.
If you would just remind me here, the consideration is a recommendation to authorize the contract with IDM US Holdings, Inc., the Gravity Budget Book. Are we recommending this to the full board? Is that what this is? Happy to move that recommendation.
I don't want to second it, but I also have another question. I'm trying to reconcile in my mind your lead categories here about approximately $15,000, a budget book and so on, budgeted, yes, and so on. But down here it says a $52,000 3-year agreement. So how's the 52 and the
Yeah.
numbers up? How's that?
The breakdown for that is shown in the contract or the quote that they have given us on page 19. So there's 23,000 in first year, which includes $9,000 of implementation plus $15,000 for the licensing. Then year 2 is 14,490. Year 3 is 15,214. And then years 4 and 5, which would be 2 1-year optional renewals, that's still under 16,000. So yeah, page 19 shows the breakdown.
So I'm just wondering, could it be clarified in the memo for the board that it's broken down into increments of payments for, 1 year at a time or something? And that's why it shows 15,000 for the cost, but it's 52 in the narrative. I mean,
Yeah,
does it make any sense to kind of,
we could clarify that a little bit better.
okay, and that would be the only thing I would.
Yeah, we have combined a 3-year contract price, and on the top we are saying per year is approximately 15,000, and in the bottom it's that's the 3-year cost with implementation. So yeah, it says 15,000 annually plus implementation. We can wordsmith that better.
Okay, I appreciate that. And anyway, just to apply the explanation to the numbers at the top of the page shouldn't be buried in a exhibit. It should be in the memo. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Makes sense. There's a minor typo on the last sentence, which we'll fix. The fiscal year, the budget amendment is for fiscal year 25-26. Or it says 24-25, so we'll fix that.
Oh, that's fair enough, yeah. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Do we need public comment?
Public comment?
I don't know if anyone's online.
Yeah,
No public comment. There's no public.
no,
Okay.
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 We do have some people.
Yes, we do have one member of the public, but she does not have her hand raised.
Okay.
Okay, back to the board, back to the motion. We've had a motion and a second, and so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. I love the gravity logo when they just invert the V. I think that's kind of cool. Okay, item number 3. Contribution of 8,000 for Rosie's Garden. We reviewed this before, I think.
Water demand.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Good afternoon, committee members, Chair. I'm Kyle Smith with the Water Demand Division. We're requesting to contribute $8,250 to Rosie's Garden in Carmel Valley. In September, Sherry Dodsworth of the Carmel Valley Garden Club, a 501c3 nonprofit, approached the district requesting funds to refurbish this garden and make it into a demonstration garden. Rosie's Garden is located in the Robles Del Rio neighborhood on the northwest corner of Escalante, across the street from the former Rosie's Cracker Barrel and now Carmel Valley Creamery. It was established in the year 2000 after the community took a flood damaged piece of land and made it into a community garden. Around that time, the district helped out with getting a water meter set there. And now 25 years later, it's in need of some repairs. Staff has we've reviewed the plans. It's 4 zones of low volume drip irrigation with climate appropriate plants. And the plan would be to have signage throughout the garden explaining the plant varieties as well as signs for donors. So 250 of those dollars would go towards waiving the permit fees for the landscape permit, and then the rest would go to work planting and redoing the irrigation and then signage. We've also recommended that we allow our public outreach contractor to help develop some of that signage. Like we said, this was reviewed by the Water Demand Committee and approved earlier this month, and so staff is recommending waiving the landscaping fee and offering $8,000 as a contribution towards the garden. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Just understanding how it works. So are we waiving the fee or are we taking $250 from somewhere else and
The total would be $8,250.
from the Best Management Practices Fund?
Correct.
Got it. That's what I was asking. Perfect. Okay. And just out of curiosity, how is it that we get, once a project like this is complete, folks to become aware that the demonstration garden's there, and if they have idea, like how do we publicize the fact that if you're looking to do a garden?
With the water becoming available, more folks are gonna be having to include landscape plans to get their water permits, so it's a good way to point and say, hey, you can go here to see some of these mature plants. We also have a WaterWise website that is full of different garden photos, which would be another place that we could put this information.
And then I'm assuming, so these are all drought tolerant, is that the right
Correct.
terminology? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Does this rise to the level of Ed?
I think we might, once it's complete, I think we'll probably throw in a Thursday email blast.
Nice.
Okay, that's good. Well, I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Public comment?
And there any public comment, you just have to ask each time.
Right, Chair Riley, there are no raised hands.
Okay, back to the board, back to the committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So just, there's just a follow-up question, which I forgot to ask anyway, but 501c3, which is a legal, what I want to say,
Charitable nonprofit.
charitable
That's
nonprofit. Do we limit our assistance to organizations like 501c3s, or are there other outlets, other options?
There are other options. Typically, we don't get approached by private entities. There's been occasion in the past where there's maybe a mixed kind of a joint project where one is private and one is non-governmental.
Okay, well, that's rare.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm satisfied. Let's go to the next item.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4 on Weber Water Resources Agreement. Monitor well 10, for 10.
Okay, good evening or good afternoon. Chair Riley and Director Daniels. We are coming to you to ask permission to enter into a contract. Do the work that is both in front of you. We have had a well, this district installed in the early 90s, reached the end of its life. And it is a contaminant risk, and it is producing quality data. It actually goes back to how the well was built. There was a flaw in the way it was built back in the 90s. In addition, this well is actually not in the Seaside Basin. It was in the early 1990s when the base closed, the district had access to these lands for the first time. We now drove a number of exploratory bores to try to understand the northern boundary of the Seaside Basin. So these wells are actually north of what's understood as the boundary of the Seaside Basin. They actually lay in the area, in the Sigma area that Marina Coast is in charge of. So a handful of these wells, we had Army easements for. We went and approached Marina Coast and said, do you want any of these wells in the area? And they said, and they did, they had a consultant come out from Department of Water Resources, do a bunch of tests on the different wells, and they said, this well is bad, we don't want this well. It also is in the middle of what is currently being graded, actively graded. It's going to be developed as campus down. So it actually would have had a house right on top of it anyways. There's a pump stuck in it. And so we're gonna attempt to retrieve the pump out of the well, and it gets filled with concrete and cut off below grade. The concrete cap was put on top of it, and then it'll be buried about 15 feet below the ground.
Got it.
This was in the budget. It was previously approved. We're going to award the contracting authority to enter into this. And also wanted to point out that we have put $30,000 in our budget, talking to well drillers before we actually got this work bid. It came back higher than that, and so we were willing to, should we do this work, come back to you with a budget adjustment with Justice Fund.
Why is there so much discussion about? Let me just make sure I have this right. Measure well 11 as well. I'm just trying to think. I was following some of this earlier, and then I kind of lost track of what's going on. But Marina Coast accepted well 10. I mean well 11.
Correct.
And then the question about question 10, FO10, they did not want.
Right.
And so since we own it, it's our responsibility to take care of it and or sort of whatever. So cap it. So now we're doing that. Where did Marina Coast? How did they accept well 11? What was that process?
I think we're in the process of it. They've correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but their Board Order 10 is now sold to the developer by City of Seaside. It was that land was transferred to the City of Seaside by the Army. Board Order 11 still exists on former Board Order, so it still exists on what was Army land. The district has what's called a franchise agreement for the next 100 years. We just renewed it actually 5 years ago to operate a monitor well on the former Fort Ord. But the district's name is on that franchise. So we've actually been working with Michael Laredo to write a transfer of that franchise to Marina Coast, so they would own. And a typical monitor well can last 30, 40 years. And so why you ask for 100 is so you could redrill it if you really to. So you could describe in real estate a lot of land that you have permission to operate.
And do we, is this a contribution? I mean, do they pay for anything, Marina Coast?
No.
Or is this just public agency to public agency and then continue?
Transferring it, Michael's reviewed the form of signing. And so then it's just up to the equivalent of the Army's district engineer to approve the transfer. So it'd be a change in name. Then when it goes bad at some point in the future.
Then when it goes bad at some point in the future, Marina Coast will have to pay for it.
Yeah, it relieves the district of liability of end of life of that one.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. I mean, whose tentacles are still attached to it once it's transferred? All right, we're out and they're all in. Okay.
What we can't predict is the Army's timeline. So,
Okay.
it's still ours until that assignment is accepted. So we'll see.
If I could ask just, so in terms of these wells, which are now considered, I don't know what the word would be if they're no longer useful, their lifespan's been exceeded. Can you just walk me through why it's really important to take the well out or
Sure.
cap it in the way that you described?
Sure. The well is what's called it's a 3-level monitor well. So it actually has 3 2-inch casings. It was drilled by a large drill bit, and then the casings each are screened at distinct depths for different levels in the aquifer. What happened, and there will be a seal in between those depths, so to stop the aquifer from what's called cross contamination or cross flow.
Yeah,
And it's failed, and it's allowing flow across aquifer zones.
got it.
So the Department of Health of Monterey County is actually asked, when we figured this out, they get involved. We have to get their permit from them, and they've requested that this be destroyed because it's a potential contaminant pathway.
So are there, outside of the district, but just in general, other wells or a lot of wells in the area that are potentially creating the same type of contamination because they're not destroyed?
I wouldn't say because they're not destroyed, and the district wouldn't know about them per se with the data that we get. However, there are production wells that are screened across both aquifers.
Yeah.
And so the district did a study for the water master that was looking at, should seawater intrusion be discovered, which wells could be potential pathways of that. So we've gone out and identified that, and that's actually a technical document that's on the water master webpage, which I can send.
See some evidence of it when you examine in your county roll the contours of the 180 and
Yeah.
the 400.
Yeah.
And you may recall in the 400, there were some isolated little islands that just popped up. And part of the belief behind that is that there's a well that's screened in both the 180 and the 400, and the high salt level of the 180 found its way to the 400 through a cross contamination link. And that's how an island pops up.
So the reason I asked this is if we're going to be doing this, I was curious, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, if, say, the GSA might be interested in doing anything educational around the destruction of this well? I mean, it could be super low tech, but would there be any kind of video or something that might be valuable to future well owners that, you know, why we do this, this is why we're doing this, just part of the sort of global picture of the sustainability of the basin, you know, that this is important. It might be worth a phone call to them to see if there's anything they want to do around this work that we're going to do anyway.
Sure, yeah, we can do that. We were also just gives a good opportunity to introduce William. He's gonna be the construction manager on that, so we
Oh,
can,
great.
we can have him be out there taking videos and pictures.
Yeah, I think it could be, just any opportunity we get to all be sort of working toward the same goal of basin sustainability and working with our partners like the
Yeah.
GSA.
And just my interest in the outreach part of it. Rosie's Garden and this could be a multi, you know, just 3 or 4 things that could be focused on. They're not big enough to have as a single run, but together they might be an interesting little outreach effort. Okay,
Well, I think that another interesting part of it is that there's so many people involved with the health department, with us, with the county, and so it just takes so many. I mean, luckily, it's not the army anymore. But
Yes, yes.
well, in some ways it's photogenic. I mean, in a way, that's a lot of times you don't have opportunities to get an actual photo to mean anything,
Yeah,
but here it can show something. Okay, I'm happy.
yeah. So are we're recommending again to the board, right? That's all these
Yeah.
are. Okay,
yeah, this would go. Should you guys approve it, it will go on consent.
I'm happy to move to approve.
Okay, and I'll happily second it. Let's go out to the public and see if there's an option there. I learned my lesson. It takes several times.
Chair Riley, I see no, Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
No hands. Okay, back to the board and back to the committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. These things get more meaty the more you get into them, don't they?
And nice to meet you, William.
Okay, so we have the treasurer's report for August.
Yes, Chair Riley. So this is a regular monthly report for the month of August, and this time around, I've tried to work on your recommendation from last time, and I'm going to show you where the numbers are. So we started the month of August with 30.8 million in cash and investments, and we ended the month with 32 million. It's the bottom right corner. We received fee and deposits of about 1.8 million, as you can see on the screen. That's a combination of user fees, permit payments, grant payments from the state, and some rebate payments. And we made disbursements of about 744,000, which included 33,000 in rebates for the months of July and August. So a detailed listing of these disbursements is shown in Exhibit 5B. And then we have a statement of revenues and expenditures as Exhibit 5C. Now, we will be bringing back a quarterly report for the first quarter of this fiscal year in the next FSC meeting. So that will provide a better understanding of how we're doing over the quarter. Most of our revenues have a lag of 1 to 2 months. So there typically we don't see a lot of activity happening in the first quarter of the fiscal year. But expenses are on track, and revenues on the operating side are we're receiving them as expected. So nothing out of the ordinary at this point. And
Yeah,
that's my report.
Our total revenues are running pretty consistently. High 20s, low 30s. Well, I shouldn't quite say it that way, but
The reserves,
the reserves. I'm
yeah,
sorry,
yeah, they're actually a little bit up.
Yeah, we put the reserves at the end of the fiscal year before we started the audit. So And we can touch upon this in the next, in item number 5 or 6, when we talk about reserves.
Okay.
But reserves are as expected for the last fiscal year. We generally book reserves at the very end of the year when we know how much revenue and expenditures have happened, and if we have enough funds to book the reserves. And we were able to do that for fiscal year 24-25. And we were able to book all the reserves that we had budgeted.
Is this just in the investment and so on? Is this a targeted area of management, or is this a result of other actions and this is the result of it? And do you report the results, or do you report management that has this in mind? Is that an odd question?
It's not an odd question. It's more, hate to use the same answer, that it's a little bit of both. In that you can see the management investment policy, if you will. I mean, see the distribution of funds between LAIF and class, and then our multi-bank securities, which are negotiable CDs. So you can kind of see the allocation, which is purely a management policy, because you have to make sure you've got enough to meet payroll, so immediately available funds, and then those what's called the multi-bank securities, those negotiable CDs are laddered out over time for when you think you're going to need chunks of revenue. So from that standpoint, it's a byproduct of that kind of forecasting, but it also does fall out of the decision-making that happened leading up to what do I have left to invest. And so, but 3 months in a row of payroll, because our revenues are chunky,
Right.
You may receive, for example, we will receive our property taxes in 3 bites typically. And to the extent we've got expenditures over the course of the whole year that need to be met by those, you need to kind of roll that into something that's got greater liquidity. But as we begin to accumulate reserves, we may not have a need for a big chunk of it for 5 years, which is why you'll see some CDs laddered out in a lengthy maturity. So,
Thank you. That covered the gist of it. This is driven by our investment policy, and as the treasurer has the discretion to make sure that there are enough funds to meet cash flow needs, both for vendor payments and payroll. We have big payments of 1.5 million going out to Monterey One Water when we purchase it. So we need to make sure that we have enough funding for that, and that needs to be liquid. Our investment policy states 2 core objectives: liquidity and safety of principal. It doesn't state yield. We aren't trying to get yield, so we don't invest in stocks. In fact, the state prevents us from making any speculative investments. So these are safe investments. There are 2 types of portfolios: the cash flow portfolio for day-to-day operations, which is in the bank, the checking account and the money market account. And then there's what's called the long-term portfolio, which is typically in LAIF, class, and multi-bank securities. And we don't draw upon that until we have a really big payment coming up. So that's how we roughly think about it. And it's the treasurer's decision at this point. We do try to maximize yield. As you will see, last year we earned almost $1 million in interest payments, and so we went above what we budgeted. We had a really good year in terms of yield. That $1 million was more than what we earned in permit payments and capacity fees, I think. So we do look at both, but our first goal is to meet our operating cash flow.
I think, Dave, you've described in an earlier discussion somewhere or another that when you first arrived here, there there's no money to speak of in this category.
I came in September and the prior fiscal year closed at about $350,000 of reserves.
It's got nothing.
Yeah.
So this has been a good run for our finances and safety and ability to do things, because it's really been kind of backup of other efforts we've made. And
Well, it'll be interesting too. We've really discounted the capacity fees, the connection charges, if you will. If we're successful in lifting the moratorium on the setting of new meters, you may see a lot of a bump in those kind of project revenues to the district. That when we budgeted, we kind of budgeted below even projects we're highly confident are going to come online. So we may have a little bit of revenue windfall here in the next few years, and it'll just continue piling up.
yeah, it's good. It's good to be reminded. I mean, that how we've progressed over the last 10 or 15 years. The full district. Okay, did we do everything we were supposed to?
Just public comment.
Public comment.
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay, to the board. So I'll move approval, or I think this goes to the consent calendar at our board meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item. The page number here. We're trying to
59.
Okay, page 59, the Accounting Standards Board, focused on pensions, okay?
Chair, if the committee is okay, I can take the next two items together because they're very similar.
Fine.
So items 6 and 7 are both valuation reports. One is for pension and the other is for what's called other than pension employment benefits, or OPEB, and it's mostly retiree healthcare costs that we have. They're both prescribed by the Government Accounting Standards Board, or GASB. GASB issues guidelines on how to report this. And so we have to just follow that prescription, come up with a valuation report, and then book it according to how GASB is prescribing us. So what's GASB? GASB is the standard setting body for US generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. They set the standards for state and local governments, and they come up with new guidelines every year on how to present our finances accurately. And so they issue revisions and statements over time so that our finances accurately reflect our business operations. So the GASB 68, which pertains to our retirement, where is that liability coming from? That liability comes from the benefits that the district provides to its employees. There are mainly two types of retirement benefits. One's for classic members and one is for PEPRA members. Classic members are those hired prior to January 2013. They get a benefit of 2% at 55, which means 2% of their salary times their final year compensation times the number of years of service. And then PEPRA employees, same formula, 2% at 62. What you can see here is that the district is moving towards PEPRA members. Our classic employees, have retired. And so we have less of those active employees. We're moving towards PEPRA. And so this creates the liability. Most of the unfunded liability is coming from Tier 1 classic members. And so going into how much is this liability? Now, since we're a small public entity, we participate in what's called the pooled cost sharing plan. And so our assets are combined with assets from other public utilities. And so CalPERS has this miscellaneous risk pool, which you can see on column 1. It has about 24 billion. We have an allocation factor for that liability. So we look at the total, so we look at the total liability in the pool and total assets in the pool, multiply that with the allocation factor for the district. And so what this table is saying is our total pension liability is at 28.5 million. And the total assets that we have against that liability is around 21 million, so 20.9 million. And so subtracting the two, we have a net pension liability of 7.5 million. That's as of the measurement date. And CalPERS does this 2 years in arrears. So this is the latest report that we have. We have 7.5 million. This graph shows the evolution of that liability over the last 4 years. And this liability varies based on like 3 different factors. One is employer contributions, employee contributions, and then investment returns. So if the investment returns vary, this liability varies. Now, I won't go into the details here unless you ask me to. We in 2021, we had a liability of 3.5 million. CalPERS had a negative investment rate of 6%, and our liability bumped to 7 million the next year. And then CalPERS again had an investment return of 5.8, which is less than the discount rate, so our liability bumped a little more. In the latest year, CalPERS had a really good year, and our liability has gone down by a little bit. And someone may think, well, the liability could have gone down more. Why didn't it do that? And that's because whenever there's an increase, it's recovering some of the lost ground from prior years. Because when there's a loss, CalPERS tries to ramp up that over several years, so there isn't a shock in the system. And so when there's a year of good return, it's trying to smooth it out. So anyways, there's a net reduction. We're still at 7.5 million. And that brings, so the funded status of our plan is around 73% as of now.
Can I ask a question before you move on?
Yeah.
So the unfunded liability, is that something, a number that, I'm looking at the last column, that we just know and we calculate and we have, or are we paying on that somehow?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So that's a liability that we have to pay over the life of the plan, which is amortized over 20 years. And what we pay every year is CalPERS sends us a bill saying, hey, you have to pay. So we have been paying around 600,000, and that payment seems to be going up. And in fact, to answer your question, if you look at this slide, CalPERS gives this to us. On page 13 of the evaluation report, it's giving us the projected unfunded accrued liability, or UAL, payment on the last column. So that's would be going up in the coming years, and so that helps us to project our budgets for that liability. We pay this liability every year. That's what we pay. So we don't pay the 7.5 million. This is what we are paying.
So if every entity like ours that is a PERS member is paying this, why is it growing? I'm just trying to understand, you hear a lot about, and I'm sorry to take time in this meeting, but I'm happy to have the opportunity to understand it better. It seems
Yes.
like we're paying on this liability. Is it just a question of not being able to catch up because it's growing, or what?
Yeah. So the liability grows at the rate of about 6.8%, which is the discount rate. If the assets don't match the discount rate, there's a net liability that keeps accruing, that keeps on adding up. And so sometimes we might be playing catch up because we have, unfunded liability from year 1, then year 2, year 3. Well, so that's what's happening. So the liability is growing. If the assets don't grow at the same rate, then there's a net liability that keeps getting accumulated.
Okay,
Makes sense.
starting to understand. Thank you.
Well, but I've always thought that these unfunded liabilities affect our credit rating. And I don't know if they do or how much they do, but to the extent that we can I don't know, eat away at the level of liability that we exist. And I know we're putting in, what, 100,000 a year?
Yeah.
So we're building the capacity. I don't know if these are payments or just kind of reserve
So
accounts.
set asides for now.
Okay, just set aside. But if we do have the set aside, even if we don't spend it, I think the rate of payment into the unfunded liability, we're at what, 70% or something?
Yeah, the funded ratio.
Yeah, and if we go to 72 or 74 or 75, we're proving a couple of things. One, we're paying attention to this. Second, we're reducing the liability in the future. Third, it ought to increase the perspective, at least, of the credit raters.
Yeah, there's always some level of unfunded liability that the rating agencies expect, that, very few public entities are at zero. But when you consider the types of government agencies that don't have control over revenue setting, the rating agencies do tend to look, if you've got a very significantly unfunded liability and you've got very little revenue control, then it becomes a negative credit factor. So take, for example, just general funds of cities. If you can't increase your revenues, then you're going to be losing ground on your unfunded liability. Whereas utilities, you can raise rates and charges related to the overall cost of delivery of the service, of which your pension liability is one of those costs. So we do have greater control over revenue raising for that purpose, but it's clearly a factor that's considered by the rating agencies. Yeah.
But if we don't have rate setting capabilities right now, how does that show up in credit ratings?
It would be bad. We voluntarily waived 1 year of ability to do a Prop 218 revenue raise in order to keep the taxpayers' settlement where it was. But we'll get past that before we do any credit rating. So
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Okay, a subject for later discussion, but yeah. Okay, well, got my own kind of limited awareness.
And part of the answer perhaps is also having the pension OPEB strategies that we are proposing. So that's the once the revenue piece. The other is we are proactively looking at this, and we're looking at ways on how to reduce it. So that it would be better to adopt it sooner than later if we were to move in that direction.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, that's good. That's a future item, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we want to, I know we've talked and we're going to talk a third time about reserve policies, but the overarching reserve policy is figure out where our bench trial is and whether the district can continue to move forward on the acquisition, or if it's going to be stuck with legal expenses. And so even before we start looking at trust fund options or anything, right now, the 30 million that's sitting in the bank could be reallocated, and we could certainly take care of a big chunk of our unfunded liabilities, but it's that big unknown on legal expenses that we have to get past.
Right, and first priorities for us is the bench
Yeah.
trial.
Yeah.
Yeah, timing is a consideration for us.
Yeah. So, and it's just a similar format and approach to both these items on the agenda.
Yes, so if you allow me to continue.
Okay.
Sorry, I went past this. So the next item is very similar to this one, and we're just looking at retired medical expenses. But I won't go over this slide. This is how we pay CalPERS, but I'm going to skip that for now. So GASB 75, accounting valuation report for retired medical in our case. Where does the retired medical liability come from? It comes from these benefits that the district provides. It shouldn't say CalPERS. Sorry, just going to make the correction in real time. Okay, so we sorry. two types of benefits for tier one employees and tier two employees. Tier one employees are those with 15 years of service and those that have been hired before 2013. They would get paid a benefit of about 1,500 with COLA. There's a 3% COLA that they would receive for that payment that gets adjusted every fiscal year. And then the tier two employees with at least 5 years of service and those that are hired after 2013, they would get no COLA and just a flat $540 a month towards retiree medical. And again, here, most of our employees are tier two at this point. And so the valuation report, looks at this composition of tier one versus tier two and comes up with the liability. So we hire a third-party consultant called TrueComp or GovInvest. They're the same company. They provide the valuation report. The valuation report's required by the GASB 75 guideline. And the liability that we have this year. So this graph shows the liability at the beginning of the year, the first green, and then the liability at the end of the year. And then there are small factors, that are increasing or decreasing the liability. So our ending liability at this point is about 4.8 million on the retiree medical side. And this slight reduction is because of the discount rate that is being used. The discount rate is also prescribed by GASB. It says that we need to use a discount rate for a AA rated government bond. And whatever that discount rate is, that's what the consultant uses. If the discount rate goes up, the present value of that future liability goes down. So that's what happened. The discount rate increased to 4.7 from 3 point something, and the liability reduced. But as you will see over the years, the liability has stayed, in the 5 million range. This is the liability in the last 4 years. And that's because we don't have any assets against this liability. We just have this government bond rate, which doesn't fluctuate much. So the liability doesn't fluctuate much. So that's the report, and the evaluation report is in the exhibit. And yes, we have been setting 100,000 per year. We have 700,000 in reserves for OPEB and pension each. And, there are other strategies that have been proposed in the reserves policy, but as of now, we have about 1.4 million across pension and OPEB for this liability, for these liabilities. So that's the report.
Can I ask a question that may not be appropriate? If the bench trial goes our way and we say we can afford it, I'm just trying to think, when we integrate the staff of CalAm with our staff, does this become both the two we're talking about, become major negotiating issues with any transition?
Correct.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah. And we've contacted a couple of HR specialists, but because of the Supreme Court review of the two appellate cases, just extending the timeline, we haven't engaged anybody to do
I think it's premature. I'm just trying to think of what are the issues we might be facing.
And contribution rates are different, and the type of retirement programs are different. And so you would have, under PERS, you don't vest until you're 5 years in. So you may see a lot of older employees who say, it's not worth it for me. I'm not going to make it 5 years. And you'll have others that'll be, okay, I'm starting to pay in. I've got a long career ahead of me. I just want to be assured that my benefits are as good as what I had before. And so it's balancing those benefits. There are differences in the deductions that are currently done in private payroll versus public payroll. So we have to at some point equilibrate all of those so that people know what their business deal is by coming over. Yeah.
And it'll be a personal decision by all the employees. Yeah, as well as a union option, a union opportunity to represent all the employees. And so it's two ways here.
Well, and it'll be interesting too. They have a union right now. It's
They used to,
it's a division of I think the,
Utility Workers of America.
yeah, which is a sub of either AFL-CIO or one of the larger ones.
I mean, it would be great to keep them on a 401k plan. No pension.
Yeah, that may be an option we have to figure out how to deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a negotiating point with the unions.
Okay, well, looking too far ahead right now. So I'd move approval of both of these. No, should we do one at a time?
You're just receiving them. And
We're just receiving them.
Keep them as well, so there's no action on these.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
okay. Then we should act to receive them?
You don't have to act to receive them, they have been received.
Okay. Okay, all right.
Should ask for public comment.
Okay, are there any public comments?
Apparently,
Online,
there are no raised hands.
okay. Do we have anybody listening, by the way? You said there's
Yes.
one listening, okay.
And Mike is going to leave here in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes to go actually to where our one member of the public is listening from.
All right. All right, okay, well, let's move to the next item, recommendation to adopt the financial policies. This is the one that went to our committee a month ago
Yes.
and back and kind of cleaned up on it.
Yes, so the committee has seen this 2 times and extensively discussed it. I appreciate all the discussion and the questions that we've gone through. So I won't be going into detail. I'm just going to provide a summary that there are 5 policies that are being proposed. The first 2 policies, reserves and pension OPEB strategies, are to meet the strategic goal of the district for this fiscal year. The next 2 policies, unclaimed monies and budget, that's mostly for operational considerations. And then the debt policy is to prepare ourselves to meet our aspirations to potentially acquire, the water system. And even if we weren't we wouldn't go in that direction, this policy is still needed because the state wants us to have that policy before any kind of debt is being issued. And so the state prescribes 5 different criterias that need to be in this debt management policy. It's governed by Government Code 8855. And so we have tried to meet those criterias in our policy. The staff report is a little revised. We've tried to give it more structure based on the last discussion, and hopefully it reads better. The only change from last time is the addition of what's called a compensated absences reserve. And this is being proposed after we went through an audit with our new auditors. And we realized that we have $1 million in liability. This is what the district would pay out to employees if they were to leave for their vacation leave and sick leave. And the reserve policy proposes 25% of that total liability, because we don't assume more than 3 or 4 folks leaving at one time. But we would like to set aside some funding towards that future expense. And we are proposing that if there is a general reserve surplus, then part of that go towards the reserves, towards compensated absences reserves, and then the rest would go to pension OPEB reserve. So that's on page 166. So it shows the assignment of those reserves. That's the only change that we have. Everything else is the exact same as we have discussed in the previous meetings. In the last meeting, we did go over how to operationalize these policies. And so we would be setting aside enough reserves towards expected legal expenses. And then any surplus outside of that would be assigned to other liabilities, including pension, OPEB, and compensated absences. So that's where it stands right now. And happy for any additional comments, discussion.
Well, I like the fact that we're putting into place these policies. And I also like, until your last comment, the thought that these are going to be unfunded accounts until it goes to the board or there's some reason to add some money to one of these accounts, except the last one you just mentioned. Might that be one that ought to be financed, or is that also able to take as contingency?
Yeah, we can internally finance it. It's not an extraordinarily large sum of money. Think of it as the accrued but untaken vacation time and sick time. It's just a big payout. But it's.
And that's when there's a departure, they terminate.
Yeah.
Overtime.
Yeah, I prefer to think of it as retirement.
Retirement, okay.
But yeah, so it's not an insignificant potential liability, which is why we'd fund it up at 25% of the potential liability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, I'm glad to see this before us. I'm just glad to see it going forward. Do you have any questions along those lines? Yeah, I've been looking at it pretty closely, and I'm real pleased. Even though there's parts of it I don't understand very well, but at least I'm trying to, and I like the idea. I like the idea very much.
When do you expect that this will come before the board?
Whenever you recommend that it goes to the board, it could be this meeting or any other meeting that you deem fit.
Could be the next meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should move it to the full board. They may get overwhelmed and want to push it off, but we're ready to take it.
And this would be not on the consent calendar, this would be on the discussion. Yeah, I think it would have to be because it's new policy and so on.
Yeah, we're about to look at the agenda anyway, so I'll show you where it is.
We'll try our best to summarize all these policies in one meeting report.
I know. Okay, well, I'll move, go to public, any comments?
There are no raised hands, Chair Riley.
Okay, well, I'll move approval to send it to the board.
And I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Mike, are you keeping an eye on the clock for yourself? Okay. The next two items are just informational. If you have any particular questions, we can address them. Otherwise, I'd like to go to the agenda for the board meeting. You can see right after Pledge of Allegiance is the presentation in appreciation of outgoing Director Anderson. I would like to move item 11 up, and Michael, I would need your term of art here, but ahead of the consent calendar, and I don't know if we call it a special action item and then leave all the action items as is, but can we call it that? Just, yeah, so the reason for that would be you're going to have three candidates here. You're going to give them 3 to 5 minutes to make a statement on their own behalf. We'll keep them in the lobby so they don't hear each other's statements.
I've been through it.
Past. And then if, to the extent any director has questions, so we'll move that up ahead of consent so that we can then free them. They will not be seated even if you immediately appoint, which I hope you do, because by law, we've got through November 11th. So this is, the only regular board meeting that we could do it at. So Sarah, you can make that change? Everything else you see is the business of the district, but there's a lot on here. So when you talk about those financial policies.
Just before you move off on that, Dave and George, just so you're aware, and Dave, I'm sure you know, but a question I often get is, can we go into closed session to talk about the candidates? The answer is no. It's gotta be an open discussion.
That's a great point.
I just want to make sure that so if the question does come up, the answer is gonna be no, we're having it here with the camera rolling.
So their presentation, our discussion, and our vote are all
Open to the public.
all open to the public. And just where is this going to be on the agenda again?
Move it right after oral communications and ahead of consent.
And if you could explain one more time, so assuming that we all agree on a candidate and we vote that candidate in, when do you think they'll be seated?
Should be the next meeting.
Okay, so we could do it by the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, that sounds good for me.
Yep, because then you can release them and then go on, but, you know, I mentioned that there's some potentially lengthy items. So the first lengthy one is currently item 10, which is the new water efficient landscape ordinance, the replacement for the old one. That went through Water Demand Committee.
This was first reading, right? Oh, I see, first reading.
Yep. And then item 12, which is the financial policies. This will be the first time your other board members will
Heard it.
have heard it. And then item 13, which is a really must do given current timing. There may be a lot of discussion about that as well. Certainly some public comment. I think there'll be a lot of interest when the board packet goes out on Wednesday or Thursday this week on that item.
There's no committee, this hasn't gone to any committee, so this will be the first discussion.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the item that's listed as 12 is on the agenda, and that's the one we just discussed.
talked about.
You already have it on the agenda. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah, this does have the potential to be a very long meeting. Is there a reason why the financial policies needs to be sooner rather than later, or could it go to November?
It'd go to
Go
November.
to the next meeting, following meeting.
I would suggest that.
No, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
It would be nice to know what's on the November agenda too, just to make sure it.
Well,
that once isn't.
there'll be the second reading of the ordinance, but other than that, there's nothing pressing.
I would recommend that just for timing.
I think that makes sense. And
That would
Makes sense to me too.
The meeting right afterward, the next morning.
Yep. So Sarah, those are the two changes then.
And let me back up.
Before you get a chance to cut their teeth on it.
On a big item.
And item 14 is the summary of the You Belong amnesty program. So there may be some interest in discussion. So it makes sense to move the financial policies.
Sure.
So yeah, that's where you had a bunch of
Yeah.
collective feedback, negative.
It's been
Not my
quiet,
fault, it's your fault.
been quiet at my office.
I want to go back up to presentation for outgoing directors. Will Amy be informed that, I mean, that it's listed to, at least if she can't be in public, by a person, and she probably wouldn't be, then make sure she's on Zoom, because you
Yes.
can hear that. And is there a plaque or anything that goes with
Yes.
that? But she won't be here, so we'll just have to make sure we acknowledge that, but then okay.
And I do plan to reach out to Amy to let her know what's on the agenda. And then her choice to participate in person or by Zoom, I will make sure she gets a link. And we will have the plaque at the meeting, so we can show it up, to the cameras. And then I'll make sure it gets delivered to her.
Okay, no, that's good. I just want to make sure we don't.
And Mike and I have to be at it's the Chamber of Commerce.
All right. You're gone.
Have fun.
Nothing more on the agenda? No other comments?
So just make.
Meeting adjourned.
All right. Time.
All right.